It's not a long time that we see us again in a total different circumstance now, and I'm really happy to do this. Now I can tell my son that I'm doing as well something for Ukraine, and he will be very proud. So, yes, new work, it's a new term nowadays, and everybody thinks that needs very, very specific human resources concepts or leadership instruments, etc. And we'll see what really happens. And I would share a PowerPoint with you. So you can see the PowerPoint?
Yes.
Fine, thank you.
Okay, so two questions are in the focus of the term of new work from the human resources point of view. Is at first this ongoing discussion about artificial intelligence and Industry 4.0. I will come later to this term. And the second then is how is a corporate organization and management reacting on this? We all know this, we knew it as smart factory or unified architecture. That means anything is combined in the supply chain with digital information up to the person, which is digitalized as well, as we even don't know, but many of these so-called wearables were still in use, and they can be not only be used in social media, they can be used in professional life as well. And then we see this nice pictures, people sitting at the beach and doing some fancy work somewhere in the world and getting some dollars on their account. But the reality is a bit different, as we know. So when we speak about unified architecture and let's say smart factories, AI support working process, wearables, we all know these pictures, like these wearables that people have implanted, hand scarves when they're under production or in their working clothes, sitting at screens, even at production, like former blue-collar workers are now more sitting at a screen than in front of a machine. It comes to, what we say work 4.0, which means the fourth industrial revolution. And then we have this focus on agile work, so dynamic work systems, home office, we all know, remote work, that means we just work on demand, like click work as well, or we commute across borders, like people commute maybe once or twice a week from Frankfurt to London airport, where they meet their colleagues from the London base branch, because they both have round about 1.5 hour way. And so it's totally normal that people commute long distances just to meet some people. Up to co-working or crowd working. Nowadays, all these terms, they give us the experience, or they give us the feeling something is really totally new. So where does this term come from? Up to the 18th century, nearly all of the work was home culture or home garden work. So even craftsmen sit at their home and produce some textile, and then they brought it to the market. So it was day-by-day labor or even bounded labor. Even today we have this, that companies, investors give you a private loan and then you are bounded to pay back the interest rates. But with the invention of the steam machine, we have this mechanization, that means the Industrial Revolution at the end of the 19th centuries, now they were able to focus or to concentrate a huge amount of energy in one place, and then they brought all these people living in their houses or farms to the factories. And the second Industrial Revolution was just 20, 30 years later, the electrification. And that was mainly, here's a small picture, maybe someone knows the movie of Charlie Chaplin. You see right in the middle on an assembly line that that brought people together, and we were able to produce in masses with high energy in factories. It was Taylor, his friend Winston Taylor. It's well known from economic classes, for example. Nowadays we call it Taylorism. They both were in boarding school as young boys. They were good friends, and they started Henry Ford and Winston Taylor. They were very innovative, but they were more interested in playing tennis. Like Winston Taylor was a very good tennis player, and Henry Ford in races, because his father had a small company made cars. And so when Henry Ford's father passed away, he had to go home, and then there was the question: do we sell this garage where they produced single cars, or do we want to renovate it and make it in a bigger factory? And his friend Winston Taylor helped him, and then they cutted every work move into very, very small, let's say, by hand made actions, so that people specialized on the assembly line, and they get faster and faster with this small behavior moving. And because they thought people can earn more money now because they are more efficient. So they had very, very social thinking at the beginning. And we call this Fordism in economics. And then in the second half of the 20th century, the 21st century, there was this information technology, let's say 1970s, and that what we nowadays call artificial intelligence. Engineers would say, yes, in the 1970s, we called it telematics. But what is new now, it's cross-border, worldwide. We have global networks, digitalized networks, and more decision-making processes are integrated. And this is what we call the fourth industrial revolution as digitization. So what does it mean, the fourth revolution? That means we have a human-machine networking in the whole supply chain, from digging the resources, like natural resources out of the ground, down to the customer when he uses our product, and even the after-sales service time or quality or sustainable use of what is the end of the product life. And as I said before, it's going from personal individual wearables. We can see here some, like you have implanted information system in your glasses or in earphones, in your smartwatch or smartphone, or you have a fitness tracker. Everything what you can use personally, you can use for work as well. And we will see even if it's an implanted chip in your hand or in your neck later. And then just this person is a part of this, what we call this smart factory. They're connected to machines, to purchasers, and latest to the sales places, to managers, etc. I'll give you an example from Adidas, which is one of the well-known sport product makers. They don't produce anything else. You know, Adidas, the name comes from Adolf Dassler, and now you know when this son was born, and where this name Adolf was very fancy in Germany. And he was a shoemaker, and then later on, before he passed away, he gave it into the hands of his both sons and divided the company. The elder one got the Adidas, Adolf Dassler company, the bigger part, as the elder always gets in this tradition in history, and the younger one got a part of the company, which is nowadays known as Puma. And time by time, they bought companies, like they bought Reebok, when Reebok, an American sports company, which now was sold again to a Japanese investor. But Reebok was a long time not that good on the American market. So they bought this Reebok as a brand, and then they sold beside Adidas Reebok shoes as well, so that the US customer get the feeling they buy something a US product. And the same as then US, for example, golf playing is very, very important. There are universities there only for golf management. And this was TaylorMade, an American golf company. And then they have Adidas golf clubs, Reebok golf clubs, and TaylorMade golf clubs. So the customer get the feeling they get really variety to choose, but it's all the same production. And all these products are produced in Asia nowadays. So the headquarters of Adidas in the south of Germany, near Nuremberg, town is Herzogenaurach, so a very small town. The headquarters is just a building with 5-6 floors, and they're working for 500 people, but in totally they have 80,000 people working for them worldwide. And all these shops mainly are franchise based. So when you go to an Adidas brand shop, like these shoe shops we have in our pedestrian areas in bigger towns, then let's say here in the example that's in the US, in New York, at the Times Square, there's a huge Adidas shop. People go in, they look for a fancy model, what they would like to have, and then they put their leg like in a small bassin. We have sometimes at home for small fishes, and it's a hobby in the family. And in this bassin, is a 4-dimensional measurement of your food. So the length, the weight, etc., even the softness of your skin, etc., is measured. And then this data goes via night to Germany, into the headquarters, to the south of Germany. And then they start, a software is starting, let's say, the way how to produce this shoe. And then next night, the data is going back to the US, somewhere in New York, in, let's say, somewhere in the backyard, there is 3D shoe production. And then there is a local alliance partner from Adidas who is producing the inner part of the shoe individually for your measured shoe. And then it is put into the model of the shoe design you wanted to have. And this is what is ongoing. You can see this kind of shoes. They are mainly, the mainly thing of the shoe is like, looks a bit like a net, like a fisher net or something. So there you can see these are individually produced shoes, but based on this individual measurement, and they put it inside a model. So it's your unique shoe. This is ongoing now for many, many kind of products. Now I want to show you a small video. Okay. So this video shows how to implant now these computer chips, which you have in your, maybe in your smartphone or in your smartwatch, etc. And now companies are going, so for really 5-6 years, it's on the market. They're going to implant it. It's easier. And normally they implant it between the fingers, bones in your hand, because then it's more secure because of the bones. You will see that. Okay, so there was a short insight that it really happened. We go back to the PowerPoint. So this has happened, and it's not only just one or two companies. There are companies that do it as a pre-selection factor that you have to do it. Just it started with like, you can open the door, you don't need an electronic locker anymore. The work time is measured, and they can measure your blood pressure, etc., which sounds a bit strange for us in Germany, for example, or in other cultures as well, that companies are doing this. But when we think a bit back, or in our own country and cultural behavior, we always have accepted something. So last time I had a lecture with freshman students of first semester, so 18, 19-year-old students, and I asked them, would you like that the company, before they sign your contract, that they get a blood analysis from you? And then students start a bit thinking, laughing, and then some got a bit, no, I don't want, etc. And then, but at the end, someone said, yes, but I'm working in the sanitation area for 10 years now as a volunteer. It's absolutely normal that we have to do regularly blood analysis. And then another said, yes, I know people working in a hospital have to do this as well, or people in the army, or my dentist, etc., etc. And then more and more came out that this kind of analyzing a laborer's body is totally normal when it is an exception, but in the moment it touches people by themselves, then they start thinking about. And this brings me a bit to the movie from Charlie Chaplin. It was made in the 1920s, modern times, and if you have a chance to see it, I think it's free on YouTube or any kind of streaming the things. You cannot learn more about modern production technology than Charlie Chaplin made in this movie 100 years ago, when he heard about the stories of Ford and Taylor, etc. And then he made a persiflage on it, but it's the same. Normally, a company exactly can see what you're doing when you're doing a break. Just open your eyes, look in the neighborhood when you see delivery drivers from your neighborhood. Maybe these are students, they do some side jobs and they have this small ear implanted or ear chips, or let's say speaking micros, and then the delivering company exactly knows where they go, which route they drive, how often they stop at a McDonald's shop, or sitting in a park and smoking a cigarette, or they are on track and working. This is absolutely normal nowadays. So when we summarize, there are some benefits. Oh, I see a mistake. Here's Arbeit. So it must be work 4.0. There are benefits and opportunities for employees with artificial supported digital recruiting, for example, which is probably the same process we know for 30, 40 years when companies started in mass recruiting with just paper-based tests, just to make the process faster and more efficient. And now you can do it digitalized. It's just, I would say, a different kind of doing the same thing, because now you have this digitalized processes, but they're doing the same like people in test psychology did when they did mass test. Then we have personal development programs for onboarding or learning, e-learning. That means people get, in the first weeks they work in the company, they get maybe an e-learning program about the company's history and the company's products, etc. Or maybe they have to do some basics to learn in a specific language where they're working in export or in English. And up to e-learning programs, introduction in project management, etc., before you go to a seminar to harmonize, let's say, the seminar program users in their basic knowledge. And bigger companies now start to do career planning. And then they have all data from the human resources. They know who has gone through different seminars, what was the last appraisal reports about their performance, etc. And then the career plan gives out 3 or 4 people which might be interesting. And just the end of the whole analysis process, then an HR manager and a manager are going to interview personally these people. But all this mass work is done nowadays very often by more or less computerized tools. Then, as we already spoke about the work equipment, you have this digitally supported tools, body parts and strengths like wearables or exoskeletons. So wearable, I already told you, is that what you wear in your pocket like a smartphone, or even it's an implanted chip in your hand or somewhere. And exoskeletons comes from skelet. These are mechanized tools where think about an assembly line where companies build cars and people have to work under the car to fix some things in an emission system, etc. And when you always have to put your hands above your head or your shoulder, you know how, even if it's a very light, not heavy work, you know that after a while it's getting very, very hard. Just think about, you have renovated your student apartment and then you have to renovate the ceiling, etc. Then after a while, you feel your muscles. Doesn't matter how heavy it is. And these exoskeletons, they help you. They exactly know now you're moving up your arms, and then they help you a bit like an elevator. They help you, and that it is easier for you. And then in the work organization, we have on one side more autonomy. We have higher quality jobs. That is always when the media tells us, oh my God, now artificial intelligence will cut all our jobs. We will all become unemployed. That's probably only individual things. All industrial revolutions from steam, first industrial revolution, through electrification, etc., up to digitalization now, it's always bringing new kind of jobs. Higher quality. We speak let's say the winners of rationalization is the higher quality. People, the blue collar workers, are not working by hand, with dirty hands, with oil and so on. Now they're sitting at screens. So they have a higher quality job now, but on the other side, just even helper jobs, they were cut it off. And then we speak about work-life balance. That means we have the possibilities maybe for more with click work at home, like, you know, all this we used when we have a bank service, when we have computer-based banking, and then we have a hotline. These are not people working for the company. They are just working for an agency, and they have 3 or 4 banks where they work from. And just with the number you dial in, they greet you with, hello, I'm Miss So-and-so from this and this bank. What can I do for you? And they just were paid for this click, maximum 3 minutes. And then they do this rationalized work, which is normally standard work. And then maybe the next phone call 10 minutes later is from another bank customer via the dialing number. Then they say, oh, I'm Miss from this bank. How can I help you, sir? And we know about home office and all these things. That seems that work organization will change a lot, but we will see what is really changing when it comes to leadership. So we speak about flat and agile hierarchies, that more group work planning systems, and the group will decide, and we don't need that many management positions, especially in the lower management. We have hybrid rules. We will see, I'll give you some examples a bit later about this, that people work in 3-4 different roles. It's a bit like in the university, someone is, let's say, a director of internationalization, but in the same, this person is a teacher and or lecturer and doing and maybe is a researcher beside. That's what we call hybrid roles. They have in their different roles, they have different positions in the hierarchy and different expertises as job profiles. And then we have this permanent performance recording via the computer or the AI, which really can see how is your performance today, why is your performance now today at Wednesday morning at 10 different than like it was last week or like it was yesterday at the same time. And then we have this supported employee assessments like e-learning, etc., where there is no supervisor anymore needed. So this brings a lot discussion. So can you give some ideas what are problems? Just take an example out of the benefits and then think what might be problems HR or company has to deal with. Everybody in the digital room is asked now.
I see Anton has raised his hand.
Yeah, I guess one of the, just a remark to the challenges, maybe the ethicality would be one of the issues which really is concerning. Like, even though there are professions which, for example, do drug testing on, let's say, police officers, there are often done drug tests in order to see if, you know, they've consumed any, let's say, chemicals. But again, it's the ethicality. How far are you taking this data and then like sending it? Who's it gonna, you know, kind of gain from it? Who's gonna kind of receive it, and etc. So the ethicality would be one of the concerns, because, and also it's like a gray area, right? Well, how do we know who gets to have, like, for example, there's certain professions which have access to more information than others. So, but it's distinctly actually written, for example, in companies, right? For example, moderators. So again, ethicality would be my answer in this question.
Yeah, when I just always then take one or two of the keywords. So it's one of the main problems is who gets data and who is the master of the data. What can they do with this?
And are you spreading it, or are you maintaining it, or are you deleting it? So Facebook always has this issue in modern days.
Yeah, and then very often then the next question, what can they do with the data? Will they misuse it, or will they use it in the way it is? Any other examples or keywords where you see problems or challenges?
I like what Anton has said about the safety of information on human beings. How will artificial intelligence use the information on humans?
Yeah, you say use, and on the other side, we know when we are asked very structured by questionnaires, sometimes, let's say in a company, it's totally normal that big companies here in my country, every second year, they send around questionnaires, and then you have to answer, what about your work? Are you happy with the work? Are you happy with the system here? What can we do better for you? What should we change? And then people start thinking, oh, why should I say something? It's anonymous, but they can find out in the way I answer, and I don't want to have any troubles. And then you have the tendency that everybody says, no, everything is fine. And then you disturb at the end, you disturb the innovation potential of the company, because people are a bit afraid to give the information. So it's not only use, it's even the information you get can be a problem because it's wrong. Or then you have these guys, probably as we did as students as well, that we try to make just a joke with it, and we gave them some silly answers just to disturb a bit the administration process in the university, as younger people do sometimes. Any other challenges you see or problems?
He's raised his hand.
I haven't got the word.
I see Keith raised his hand.
Yeah.
Keith?
I cannot see who is raising hands. Please just go in because I see only 3, 4 small profiles, and then I see the PowerPoint. Just go in and say something.
I would say miscommunication or misinformation. For example, there are certain times where you would see someone who doesn't know maybe the emergency number of a certain country, and if they're being maybe robbed, and then they so happen to try to call the police, if you know like the pizza restaurant number or your best friend's number, you can actually just send hidden codes or messages, or they would notice your trembling voice and how you're trying to describe something that doesn't make sense to them. And they might notice that there's maybe a burglar in your house. If that so happens to be like received by an AI in the pizza company or while you're ordering, they won't be able to notice that you're actually sending a message, a hidden code, as in there's someone in my house, he's got a gun on my head, and the police for me. So that's when some situations like those may play bad for AI receptionists.
So it's a kind of individual control of everybody, individual behavior, and where you are and what you're doing. I always can advise this movie from Charles Chaplin. It's called Modern Times. You can exactly see, and suddenly Charles Chaplin made just a short walk for 3 minutes restroom break, and then at the restroom he wanted to smoke a cigarette, and automatically a big screen started on because the boss saw that he made an arrest in the restroom, but not for what is normally going on there, but just for a short smoke, and then he mastered him as well. And this can go now when you think about remote work, etc., etc. You even can see which way the people are driving, and is this the way the computer has decided is the most efficient way, or is doing some side work jobs because as a delivery driver he has some potential room on his car and can do some other deliveries for other people. Or any kind of individual behave, and which might be criminal for one, or which is in a different culture legal and used, but from the controlling center, from the headquarter, it's absolutely unnormal. Like in Germany, you only have half an hour break, which after 4 hours. So normal work time is 7.5 or 8 hours, depending on what kind of tariff branch you are. Metal workers is different like in banks. And this is officially allowed, 30 minutes for dinner, and then you have to work. Or for lunch, and then you have to work. And this is absolutely unbelievable if you work for Volkswagen in Brazil or Argentina. 30 minutes lunch break, it's just for coffee and a small talk, but that must be longer. So, and then the conflicts came up because people can see now what is going on in other cultures, and then they said, oh, we want to do the same, and vice versa. There are some other people who want to say something.
Anton, did you raise?
If it's okay to ask one more question. Yeah, so I guess one more issue that kind of arises, and I've seen like in modern days, I've noticed, is the aspect with the kind of, you mentioned about the higher quality jobs, but I also think that we should keep, we shouldn't actually rapidly start moving the kind of high quality jobs movement, and I think we should keep also lower quality jobs. The reason why is because I've noticed, like, for example, there's a large spread, or even a dynamic where there's a large spread between the incomes, or the income level specifically. So for higher incomes, middle income, lower income. And so a lot of the population, even modern days, don't have access to education, but because they don't have education, they can't have access to the higher quality jobs. And the issue here we have is that if they don't have access to education, and the higher quality jobs, they also don't have an opportunity for lower quality jobs because they don't exist technically, right? For example, like self-autonomous cashiers, now those people who don't even have an access to these lower quality jobs, like what should they do in this case? So I think we should also think about like maintaining this dynamic. So not pushing higher quality jobs extremely far, which is inaccessible also, but maybe trying to kind of maintain this lower economical, I guess, status. And again, we have this spread, like we've mentioned even in the US, right? For example, where it's like tax rich, for example, there's like high poverty levels and extremely high wealth. So I think that's maybe one of the issues we should take concern.
Yeah, thank you for this very interesting.
I apologize for this long kind of monologue, but I tried to deliver my points.
No, it's good. I just talked about the winners because all people say, "Oh my God, we will lose our jobs," and then companies react, say, "No, you won't lose. We can offer better qualified jobs." But then it's a question: who is paying these qualification and who is able? Not everybody is able to do career or to learn because of different circumstances. And exactly. What is about the losers? And then it comes to the question: is this a question of human resources or the company? The responsibility for the people which cannot go with this increasing technologies and this developing jobs. Maybe they will become unemployed, and then it's a state problem and not the company's problem. But nowadays, in times of corporate social responsibility, etc., we can think that it could be a social responsibility for the company as well. What is with the jobs we have cut off and with the people? And then it's not just a lower income, it's always that these people cannot bring their kids into schools or university because they don't have the money. So we come to this a bit later when it comes to the responsibility of the company, like with terms like corporate social responsibility. So I just put some, from some discussions, I put some problems and challenges. And as we can see, that machines with their algorithms decide about employees as people. And learning and working loneliness will start. We know this, everybody knows it from the COVID time when we had everything in homework. That sounds at first nice, but then after a while you feel a bit alone. And because family is not accepting that you are a whole day at home and have to concentrate on work and you not can play with the children when they come from school, etc. Or it feels a bit like a prison because your home office is small and then you want to go out. Then we have this externally controlled electronics on or in body. So it's that the algorithms are not decide about employees as people, they decide on employees like components of the supply chain process, like parts of the machine. It's a kind of rationalization, anything of rationalization, you pointed it out, yes, in the last discussion point, that means there is a big cut-off job, and it helps nobody just to have the vision, okay, here I will lose my job, but there will be other jobs in the society. Because this has to do something, you have to move in another town or in a totally different branch, etc. And many people cannot do this because they are bounded in their social life and social networks, just when we think about the kids in school. Then we have less work-life separation. That means with this commuting jobs or click jobs, job on demand, etc. Then there is no strict differentiation, what is work and what is life. Some people like it, but most people don't like it. There are some research that there is a lot more new illnesses, especially psychological problems, when people are working in this kind of commuting jobs or home office jobs. Then we have more and more of these 24/7 jobs or work on demand. That means there is no regular free time or time to relax anymore. Everybody can decide by themselves, and younger people, they just see the money, the career, the performance, the future, and then they absolutely focus just on career. And then we know what happens when they're 40 or 50 plus. Then there is a fewer management career positions, especially in the lower management sector, because then it's group work based with rotating group speakers, etc., or just done by algorithms, machines, what formerly a supervisor did for the group. And we already spoke about this ongoing employee control, like vital data or performance data. You mentioned the data protection, and we can say it in both directions now. What is the data which masters you from the company's AI, and what is the reaction of people when they're in such systems? And it comes at the end to ethical conflicts. And one you mentioned was what is with the people lose their jobs. There are probably a lot more problems when it comes to individual branches or job functions in the company. So what happens with the organization? We can see that these traditional functional hierarchies for hundreds of years have changed in the last 20 years in what we call lean management, outsourcing, business units, integrated supply chain models, total quality management, etc. So we have less, in many, many big companies, we have less hierarchies. And then the functions and the hierarchy levels, like here, the third picture or third graphic from the left side, is that they are integrated. And the future is showing what I always make my students understand. It'll look like the right graphic on the right is like a permanent 3-4 dimensional moving network on as a screen saver on your computer. So the connections are changing, they get other colors because the cooperation is different. Then the bubbles get bigger or smaller, some bubbles go away, outsourcing, or it's just a time-limited project management. People have different connections to different projects or to their main line work as a line manager, and they have an own project beside, and then they're an international project, just a project member. So we have more and more dynamic networks or so-called strategic alliances, these virtual organizations, and even project management, which is well known for a long time now. But these are all more and more upcoming work systems. And some of the branches in the industrialized countries already do this for 20, 30 years. So project management is well known in all technical companies. And in consultancy, it's absolutely normal that you are head of a project and then you work as part of an expert in another project from your colleague. And next year or 2 years later, it's vice versa. This colleague where you were working the project with now is your head or is inside your project. Then we have this engineering offices in. Then we have publishing companies where big parts of the companies are dynamic networks because every author is very, very different to handle. And then you have different units about electronic books and paper books and learning books, etc., and alliance with schools or university. So it's a permanent changing organization. So the trend is from this traditional down to flat hierarchies and now to more dynamic hierarchies where the employees can decide more about their own work. We call them agile networks. And with hybrid and or parallel dynamic functions, and see it in the job profile as you can see such kind of picture all around the world when we just see one line. So when people start in a company after school or after university, they are normally in situations where they just take advice from a supervisor or a group leader or a project manager, and then they use their expert skills. It starts very easy. They know how to deal with the copy machine, or where they have to put some paper-based data, or where they find some packages in the store, etc. And then step by step, by the career, they get more qualified, or they become a supervisor, team leader, and then the expert skills are reduced because they are delegated to the trainees, the vocationals, and the helpers. So let's say very easy, the team leader is not going to the computer, to the copy machine anymore. This is delegated to the secretary or to a helper. And then the social skills, what we call management skills as well, so-called key qualifications, which help you for your career. They are absolutely independent from your expertise. It's like communication skills, representation skills, cooperation skills, being innovative, etc. And the higher you're in hierarchy, the more the social skills are important, up to, let's say, the absolutely career point, if people define this as a career, becoming head of a big department or becoming executive director or the managing director of the company, then the social skills are a lot more important than the expert skills. So I think everybody can follow that a member of a board von Volkswagen is not really knowing how a motor works. That's not their job. This is all delegated to lower hierarchies, but they must be very good in lobbyism with politicians. They must be very good in communication and negotiation, etc., etc. This is you can find such kind of pictures in all management books worldwide. But what is really new now is we call it hybrid skills. This is the second diagonal line. That means when you're in one role, you normally have 2 or 3 roles, and then in each role, the job profile, the relation from expert skills to social skills is changing. I'll give you an example from the paper industry let's say here, a higher position in the middle management in a company as a department head. So he has an education as engineer in paper making, and now he made his career and is head of department in a small paper making industry, round about 2,500 employees. And this company is a daughter company, a business unit of one of the biggest paper making companies in the world. It's UPM Kymmene in Finland, is the second biggest paper making company. And he has a traditional supervising role for his department. But beside, he is in an international project from the headquarters in Finland. Every month, he is for 3 days in Helsinki, where the headquarters of UPM Kymmene is. And there he is just a project worker, because the project leader of this international project dealing with quality management standards worldwide, because they have these daughter companies in all countries as small local paper making industries. His team manager or project manager is a Finnish guy from the headquarters. So our head of department now in these 3 days in Helsinki is in a different job profile. There is more expert skills needed, maybe the German way of quality management, etc., etc., and not paper making or leadership qualifications are used anymore from him. So he has to change in these 3 days his behavior. And maybe additionally, he is working as a lecturer at a private university around the corner, where they have a study program, let's say a bachelor or master of engineering in paper making. And then he is just a high skilled specialist as a lecturer to show young engineer students how to make paper, etc., etc. So his job profile is permanent, moving in the dimensions of more or less expert skills, more or less social skills. This is a very, very typical function we call this parallel roles, just in one person. And the same you find in other kind of jobs, like think about chemistry. There is a head of laboratories, but he also is working by his own research chemistry. He has a PhD in chemistry or biology. Now he made his career as head of all the laboratories for the standard work, but on the other side, he has his own private, inside the company, his own individual research project. That's very normal. And the third one, maybe take a university lecturer, being a lecturer in the freshman year with a standardized program, but doing research, doing a seminar in a master or PhD program, etc. Then there are totally different job profiles people have to fulfill. And last example, where it comes to really challenging things and then discussions, is this possible? Think about an international project manager. And he invites his project groups, and there's coming someone from Germany, someone from the US, one from Korea, one from Latin America. Totally different, even body language behavior. They all speak English, maybe more or less good, and it works. But the people from Asia, you don't give a hard handshake and you don't look into their eyes because that's annoying them. If you don't do this with an American, he would be annoyed. He likes to have a hard handshake, etc. And then it's always a question, how fast can a project manager act on this different body language? Because we don't want to annoy someone. But on the other side, trying to play a role like an actor in a theater, being more Asian when an Asian comes, and the next second the American is coming into being American, nobody can do this. We know. And then we know about these do's and don'ts which happen. And at the end, everybody knows, yeah, that's the way. And everybody can tell the same stories. But we see that these hybrid roles, permanent changing job profiles, is ongoing and will not stop by artificial intelligence. Now, intelligence has to get this level of intelligence as well, but many people working on brain research say artificial intelligence can just copy parts of the left brain thinking, this digitalized thinking, but cannot get the analog thinking, like this emotional thinking, this innovative thinking of the right brain in our body. So when it comes to leadership now, we have these traditional leadership concepts. You see here a range of leadership. Could be very authoritarian, like it was in our countries 100 years ago. There was one patriarch, the owner of the company, and then you see below this curve, you see mainly influenced by managers. So the authoritarian or patriarchalic leadership style or the consultative leadership style is mainly influenced by the manager. Then nowadays in the industrialized countries, we speak more and more about cooperative leadership style. That means both the situation is influenced by the manager and by the employee. I give you an example. Someone is always late on a Monday, and then the manager could be very authoritarian, says, hey, go to work. If it comes again, you give a note, and then you get a notice and you will lose your job if you do not change your behavior. But in a corporate leadership style, the trainer, the manager is trained in seminars that first ask why he is or she is late. Can we help? Are we the reasons? The company is the reasons, the team is the reason, or there are some personal reasons, etc. And then the employee has a chance to declare himself, says, yes, I have a problem because of this and that. And then they try to find a cooperation that they said, okay, then what about you go in an evening shift or a late afternoon shift so that we don't have a problem on a Monday morning that you are not on board. And then very modern systems nowadays, they go into laissez-faire or autonomous leadership, that they don't have a supervisor in group work and only the employees, they manage themselves in the group, which is very, very famous in automotive industry, where you have mass productions and then you have this this job rotation inside a group, that not everybody is doing whole day the same work at assembly line, and then they change the work roles inside and outside the car. Someone gets a speaker position, etc., so that they have different roles. These are then the winners of rationalization. But mainly in my country, for example, mainly the cooperative leadership style is with a tendency of delegation, like with job descriptions, etc. Is, yeah, I would say the state of art in leadership training. So this is mainly accepted, and when you see this leadership corridor, you see there's cooperative and consultative leadership, or cooperative and delegative leadership together. This means what we see in seminars, what they call situational leadership. That means not being very authoritarian to one person and to the other person just laissez-faire, let them do. No, there must be a tendency of leadership, like cooperation, but individual to the situation. It could be more consultative, like say to a younger person which is very new in the company and does not has the roles in his behavior, and more delegative, more freedom maybe for an old employee with very long time work experience and has always done his job, and when there is a small problem, maybe the supervisor thinks, okay, I leave him, he is doing a good job, he will manage his own problem. That means situative leadership style. There must be one tendency, being always cooperative, asking, talking to people, but more or less around cooperative, depending to the individual situation of the personal and of the economic situation. When the company is, for example, in a near bankrupt, then it's more a tendency to be autocratic, because the people then will accept it, because it's their jobs which were saved then. And now it comes to the question, is this management system working? And that's very interesting. The authoritarian leadership style, which mastered our companies for more than 150 years, since these kind of companies after the first industrial revolution were set up and still existed, they were mastered, let's say 100 years, in a top-down system. A manager is doing a decision, the employee has to follow. And if you have companies with a lot of hierarchies, then the board of directors is deciding on a strategy, and head of department has to change the strategy into operations in his teams, and team manager is advising the employees which have to follow. And then it came in the 1980s, 1990s, that is more down-top system, like the board is doing a decision, and then the group work systems decide and can give ideas, etc., in workshop. So the management is going a strategic decision, but the employees and all the lower management hierarchies have the allowance, they are allowed to bring in their ideas and experience. That what we call down top. So it's a kind of cooperation. And there's a third term in the international organization theory. It says a bottom-up system, but this is probably not in private companies, that employees decide what a company has to do. So these both hierarchic systems are now coming again together. From the top down, it goes to down top, and now it comes back to top down and down top, because on one side, we have this modern management, like down top, right-hand side, agile management, remote work, co-working, commuting. There is more and more individual decision-making and freedom. And on the other side, we have smart factories, artificial intelligence processes, wearables, exogens, click work, etc., which is that we now, with all our freedom, others now go back 200-year-old story, that they are just part of a process and they cannot decide by themselves anymore. And this is a contradictory situation in the company now. I'll give you an example from a former student, one of my very, very first student. He is doing remote work in his home office, and the company you can see with the logo. And the motto is for the company, its motivation, its autonomy, work time flexibility, work-life balance, and everything they do from HR marketing to get these people. So this guy, Mr. F, has been now in the ICT. He already started when he was doing in his master. He started working for this company for 15 years, and from student internship to project assistance, product manager, and then this company was bought by the company in the Silicon Valley, and now he is an innovation manager there, something in cloud computing. So he normally works virtually in the home office. It was before COVID time and now after COVID time. So with web conferences and calls with his colleagues worldwide. So his project, he has people from India, from the US, from East Europe, etc., from all around the world. And I cite him and he says, in theory, I could always work from home. But then, as we say here, the ceiling falls on your head. Like many others, I go to the office regularly. Mostly I work for 3 days at home and 2 days in the office. On the days at home, I always work for a few hours in a cafe, be around other working people. Here in the US, we are used to these large open plan offices in the technology industry or where innovation is concerned. So they don't have offices for managers. The managers are just sit on a table in a group in a big room. But everybody knows who is the manager. Our meeting will then concentrate on the office days. Unlike in Germany, meetings here lasting only 30 to 60 minutes. There are a lot more meetings here, but they are less formal. Personal face-to-face time is very important for me and my team. So he came up and said, always being in a home office is not that good, but I need this personal face-to-face meeting. We know this from project management as well, that even virtual work is not the end of the pipe. We need that people meet together, that they have a beer together, that they go in a restaurant, they have some fun, they make jokes, etc., to get the personality of the people. By the end, now Apple has a problem to get these people back in the office because they are all highly specialized and they know about their value, and Apple cannot get these people back to more office work what they like, because they have a huge new headquarter with own hospitals, restaurants, etc., and the people are all sitting at home and they don't want to go back to the office. That's a new problem then, because did this huge investments for fancy work-life time balanced headquarter ground, but now the people like staying at home. So bring it to an end. We had this situational leadership, like, for example, in Germany, it's always based on the culture of the country you are in. In this case, I would say in Germany, situational cooperative leadership. So delegation and participation according to psychological and the employee's functional expertise. And then always for the management, ongoing leadership training and coaching, etc. And on the other side, we have for some years now, and now it is fastened by the artificial intelligence, ongoing dynamic changing teams and functional roles. We have more hierarchy-free work organization, and it's extremely participative. There are, for both situations, there is some pros, like situational leadership is very, very individual and is flexible and employee-oriented. On the other side, the pros in this network leaderships now is more you decide by yourself, it's agile, it's very transparent, everybody sees, you know the knowledge of one another, and there is no real power imbalance what we say in the US is everybody is a John. Doesn't matter if you have a PhD or just manager of the parking space. The individuality is accepted. And the problems, the manager in this situational cooperative leadership style must be always able to analyze the work and the motivation. Why happens something? You must ask the people why you are late or why is your performance bad, etc. And they need permanent training, and this is time consuming. And the network leadership, these dynamic things, it's giving up a traditional leadership role. Now a manager is not the traditional boss anymore, like a king in a kingdom. And this is disorientating and irresponsible for him or the group as well. And he cannot control the group dynamics anymore. So it says that the manager in this new system is more like a moderator, like in a seminar. The people, the group is deciding what to do, where the way goes, and the manager has to help them that they can do this. Like in a seminar in the university where the lecturer is not the head in the front who tells you what's going on. No, he gives you an open space that you can discuss in group work, and then you decide we want to do this and that, and then the lecturer gives a reflection on this and is not stopping the process. So the conclusion of this is that this machine algorithm controlled work limits personality, even to the questions you mentioned before, what is about my data? Then the leadership systems, depending on the corporate size and efficiency. The smaller the company, the easier it is, but it's better to control the data, to control, I would say, it's important for the new manager to control the controlling system. What is artificial intelligence doing? And I'll give you an example later, finally from HR. And is depending on the technology the company is using and the organization, because artificial intelligence is not very cheap. It's very dynamic in the moment because it's the standard of technology is increasing so fast that in the moment you buy maybe some software, and you have implemented and everybody can work with it, it's old-fashioned. Just think about your smartphones or the version of Word and how fast it is. And everybody says, oh my God, that's old, what you really bought just some month ago. Then we have different cultures to globalization and cultural tradition, how to deal with information, how to deal with data, etc. And we know from intercultural communication, we cannot harmonize the world, no. And just in the moment, we see how it works sometimes vice versa, that there is more and more individuality, that markets split off, or think about Brexit in the European Union, that even cultures don't want to be member anymore of a corporation. Then we have leadership situation and personalities is always, how is the manager Monday morning? Is he like it was Friday afternoon, or happens something in his life on weekend and we have to be a bit careful? And the same happens with the employee. Then we have these different cultures of diversities, like age cultures, gender culture, ethnicity, qualification. Higher qualified people communicate in a different way than lower qualified people. That doesn't mean that they're more innovative or less innovative. It's just a different behavior. So, and we know that large companies which are able to invest in artificial intelligence or to build up their own artificial intelligence in global networks, that cannot be changed in a decade because of the different traditions and different laws in the countries, etc. And then we know this from the media that there's always one country that says, I forbid this, what Google is offering, I forbid this, what Apple is offering. Just think about the Apple components where they want to have it just in their system, but the European Union said, no, all these electricity components have to be harmonized, otherwise we won't allow it anymore. And we know from the other side that people working in a group, they strive more for reliability. They want to have stable systems, and many people cannot go that fast in this increase of technology in a company, like people who have learned to learn, like, let's say, academic people or people who have studied have longer time learned to learn and self-organized learning when there is a problem. Other people don't have learned this. They have to learn at first, that they can go with this increase. And so we see there is a lot of influences, that any headline which says, oh my God, you will lose our job, artificial intelligence will master our life. We know this now for many decades, always the same headlines. It's not always what is technology-based possible is not then at the end in the real life. And I wanted to give you a last example, what we are now here doing in my university as well, together with two big companies, one bank in the area and one big insurance companies. They're working now in a pilot project on avatars doing job interviews. So the student is giving his data into the company, and the company then they check all the data. It's via algorithm. Is it in the age group we need? It's gender. It's the grades they have. It's do they have some social responsibilities in their private life? That etc. etc. This is all done by algorithms now, and then they have to do a test via the internet or the intranet. They can go in, and then when they pass the test, they were invited, they think they were invited to a personal interview on a screen. And then there is an avatar in the screen. You see a nice lady, you see a nice man, and not that old, so that they get the feeling, oh, they just have studied like I do some years before. And then this avatar is asking you questions, and the camera in the computer now is checking how is your behavior. What is the background, and is the eyes and the skin, is this very authentic what you're telling? And then they ask you just questions. I always laugh about this, but psychologists, they tell me that's very important. And then a question like, think you are a pizza. What kind of part you want to be of the pizza? I don't know what this has to do with a qualified job for a master student in a bank or an insurance, but psychologists, they say we need such things. But the students think there is a person behind, but the avatar is doing this like an actor. So this is, for example, the latest standard in human resources, what I see, what is going on, and all the things about e-learning, but then will follow in onboarding and basic seminars we already know. It doesn't matter if it comes from a screen or from a record or from a handbook. It's just a different way of media. You can build in interactivity, but this we did in distance learning 50 years ago as well. But it's going on, but my personal view is that not always what is technological possible will then really become reality, because society is not accepting it, or it takes too long and too much investments that you are really in the state of art, because the technology development is a lot faster. So that is what I want to give as a brief overview. And a last picture, I think it's like a fractal system. We know from fractal mathematics. It's always the same. It looks always the same. But when you see it outside, all the plants are looking the same. But when you individually analyze the plant, it's different. One is going to the west, the other one is going around the corner because there is some sun, other one is not that big and fancy green because get not that much water like the other plant beside, but it's always the same system, but individually it develops in the way it is efficient to stay in life and to produce new seed. Thank you a lot.
Thank you very much. Dear students, do you have extra questions?
Yes, Alexandra
Yeah.
has a question.
Yeah, I have a question about this part with the cooperation. So, if the employees are different, I mean, some are more self-independent and they really can manage their self, like self-motivation, they're okay with that, but some other are not. Can be the system mixed, like you're like getting, the employees, this employee need more attention of your, this is not. So this can be mixed, or you can be like, you can't be that specific to each one.
It's an interesting question. We had this some weekends ago. We have a new MBA program in startup development, and they're all people in startup situations inside a company. They want to make themselves as entrepreneurs, independent, or they want to set up this company, or they source out a small unit as an outsourced business partner, or they are independent students and now want to set up their own business idea. And it came up to the question, how strong is artificial intelligence touching my business idea? And we came to the conclusion that artificial intelligence is a small exception in startups, because startups are binded on the idea of the startup people and then 3-4 helpers around, and they must be very, very individual and flexible, because you do not really know what happens in the next weeks. So in startup companies, this is maybe only when there is the startup idea dealing with, maybe I want to become a producer of a small component in an international supply chain, and one of my deliverers or one of my customers is a big company with artificial intelligence supply chain mastered processes, then that makes sense, but just from the expertise of the product or the service, but not from the organization of the small company. But when it comes to an enterprise, so that what we see as a difference between startup management and entrepreneurship, when it comes that you have a product or a service and you got investment from outside investors, like a venture capital company or like private investors, and then you build up an organization, and with the increase of the organization, you have more standardized processes. And then you have the situation that, let's say, the startup manager, the entrepreneur, has to give up some power via delegation of job descriptions to others. Then new crises will come. But then the bigger the company is and the more differentiation you have in your hierarchies and in your functions, then artificial intelligence is normally starting with controlling systems, and then later on maybe with own decision-making processes. Like, we know if you go in a shop and you buy, let's say, aftershave or something, and then you put it in the shop, you take it and you bring it to the counter and you pay it automatically with paying it, automatically there is a new demand which goes back to the whole supply chain. Let's say fancy perfume by Douglas or any other perfume seller, and then it ends up in Ludwigshafen in Germany, or by BASF or Henkel or somewhere else in the US, and then they collect this and automatically they see, oh, this is the average of consumption, and then automatically they produce and send, and there is no person inside anymore, this process, only when they want to stop the process. But in small companies, I would say artificial intelligence is not that strong influencing what, like in big companies. One, by the supply chain role, and the other is that these small entrepreneurs don't have the money to buy or to develop it by themselves, except it's an IT startup or something, but that's a different. But we speak about the general mass of jobs or companies.
And also about this self-management process. So can it be like trained by employees, like when you're a leader of the company, for example, and you see that some employees can deal with it and some not, but you want, like, I don't know, to help them or like to make the more cooperative working process, can it be like improved, or it's like more like to
Yeah.
deal with themselves?
This so I was working a long time as an HR manager in a bank, and especially mainly in training and career development, etc. And then with different cultures. So there are two questions. Because on one side, you have expertise training, like language training.
Yeah.
You can learn vocabularies and you can work with fill-in tests, always on the screen. This is easier, this expert learning. But what is not easy is this behave. Even if you have very, very good grades now in all your English tests, and the artificial intelligence has 99%, let's say, what do you have, this paper-based or electronic-based tests in English standards, then does not mean that you are able to communicate downtown somewhere in London. You haven't learned about their accent, you haven't learned about their behavior, or you misinterpret the body language. You're always thinking, oh, I must do it in a good way, it must be always grammatically right, etc. But then the communication is right 1 mile before you, because you're thinking that long, and then just these people play with words and with in between the lines what is there. And so that means if you have a good expertise, does not mean that you can handle this expertise. And this is a very big problem in management training, that people, we always did it for many, many decades, I myself as well, we always choose the best people in team to give them management training, that they become team managers. But some years later, you see it's not working. The engineer has studied engineering because he wants to be inside the software or inside the hardware, etc., etc. He doesn't want to be a manager, leaving software, leaving hardware, and now is responsibility between the problem between Mr. Meier and Ms. Miller. He doesn't want to do this, because that's why he has studied engineering and not social science. And so I think in artificial intelligence, you can train people to use the screen and to maybe use data artificial intelligence will give you. But this does not mean that at the final interview with a person, it will not help you to make sure that this person will fit into the team. And therefore, you need people who knows both, that they understand the expertise, but they have the behavior that they can handle such situation. I'll give you just a very, very interesting discussion we always have, and then they in psychology, Master of Psychology, where they learn about many kind of tests to interpret and so on. And then I always go into with the question, what you're doing when the person you interview stands up and want to attack you, or starts crying because one question was something in this person broke on what happened 20 years ago. And suddenly this person is totally different reaction what the test said. She is quite very good, she has management potential, blah, blah, blah. How do you act? This is what is happening in such kind of test, that people get angry, especially now, as one of the colleagues said, that we have to see the losers which are not able to follow this, and they are afraid to lose their job about artificial intelligence. And then you know what people can do. In France, people, they go and they throw a Molotov cocktail in their office. That happens, such things. Or we make it easier. We just try to destroy the data in our office. So I think that expertise you can learn, but the behavior takes years or generations to learn. because the elder you are, the heavier it is to change the unconscious part of your thinking. The elder we are, we have more experience, we have more knowledge, we know that we have to analyze from different sides. When we sit together with someone who has a problem, then we have to think about how is his situation, how would I react in his situation or her situation. This is one we can learn about qualification and experience, but we know 90% of our reactions is unconsciously. And this you cannot, by, let's say, analyzing, just check in a situation where you have to react. You can analyze thinking again and again in some days, but in a moment you have to react. And this is very, very hard. That's why I'm thinking to train these people in new technology is very, very limited. Then a company would say the best is we just buy them from the market, but you know how expensive these people are. They know about their price, and then it comes to the next question: is a company, a human resource company or a manager, responsible what happens after the work contract? I personally would say yes. Any company is responsible if it sells a product where somewhere in India or Africa there is child work in the whole supply chain process. It's outsourced from the outsourcing partner to the outsourcing partner to the outsourcing partner. You cannot check it as a company anymore. Who is responsible for child work? I would say the one who is selling the product and makes the money with it at the end of the line. Then they are responsible. But other people say, no, they are not responsible. They had signed a contract from the outsourced company. It's we are child work free. That's an ongoing question in management ethics. And that's the same now with artificial intelligence. Who is responsible personally when artificial intelligence says we have to give a notice to this person? So we have to quit his or her job because not fitting into our supply chain. Who is responsible for this decision of software X, Y, Z, or is it a manager where the software is used?
But
Is that
if
answering your question?
Yeah, but if person do not fit to the team, for example, but the company is enough big, so you can just move the person to other type of work that they will fit better, like this. This is the only way, yeah, to.
Yeah. In bigger companies, you have, if you have a big company with 20,000 people, you always find functions. That is what we always did before, even if we don't have artificial intelligence. Because it's depending on the national labor law. But for us, example, in Germany, we have a very, very strong law. The longer you are in a company, the harder it is to get someone out. And it's really impossible if you're for 10, 12 years in the company that we can give a notice to someone which performance is not good, because what is not good performance? And might be there are reasons that we are the one. The company is responsible for the performance is not good, because performance from an employee is not only based on his individual or her individual performance, it's based on what is the performance and the service the co-workers in other departments give, where they have to work together, and what is about the material they got, etc., etc. So the performance of an employee has many, many different influences. So then in a big company, it's always easier to move someone from one function into another function, or to give some training that they can go in other functions. But if you are a small company, then it's not that easy. Then that's why many of these small startups or young companies nowadays in my country, they are not giving unlimited jobs. They give part-time job, but they give them freelancer job so that they are not dependent on them. If they cannot need them, they say, no, it's no work anymore. then it's a different situation. So I know it from banks here in the area. They give young graduates from master graduates or even bachelor graduates at first 3 years a freelancer contract. So if they're not good, they don't get any work from us. They can do nothing. And even the company doesn't have to pay social insurance for pension plan, health insurance, etc., etc. So, but on the business card, these young guys, they have written consultant. That sounds good. They're very proud of this. Now it's up to everybody. Now it's up to everybody from ourselves if we find this ethically good or not. That's a very individual question. But this is what you can see what happens in the market. If you find it good or not, it happens. Even social enterprises like from the church, these clinics or elderly care services, etc., they work more and more with freelancing people that they are not binded to their company and they are out of any responsibility. And as we are in universities, we know it's the same. Even in a state university, it's the same. The lecturers are just paid by the hours they lecture. And when it comes to the what we call the seminar free time, they don't get, they are not paid. And they're just paid when the students on board. It's a big discussion in universities as well, because it gives no social security for these kind of people and their family and the income. Sorry, there's another one.
Discussion, and we are almost out of time, but I see Alexander has a question. Yes, Alexander, do you still have a question?
Yeah, back to the pizza. I would like to be the corner of the slice of pizza, because corner of the slice of pizza is the first part which people eat, and it means that basically most of emotion, most of experience based on this corner of pizza, which means that it's one of the most important part in the relationship between human and pizza.
That's an interesting answer. I can follow. I'd like to be the garlic on the pizza, but that's a different story. Yeah, but now we have to see what is the artificial intelligence analyzing and what is the answer which gives more points or is successful. And that's a very interesting thing at maybe my last sentence as well. Artificial intelligence has one big problem. It is the second part of the word, intelligence. It's not intelligence. Because the intelligence is something different, and it's artificial intelligence can only be that intelligence like the software programmer programmed it. So at the end, it's kind of like a mechanized thing which can change mechanical processes, but always needs a role when to change something or what to do then. That is one of the problems. And that's maybe that one company says, okay, take the first bite of the pizza is the best one. And the other one said, oh my goodness, he or she is interested in the recipe, more the spices, etc. That's interesting. So we do not know what is the programming behind.
Yes, you're sure. And it's completely understandable that AI is only like producing thinking. It's the way of it's protecting like thinking. It's not real thinking. He can touch, he can teach, he can pretend like it's teach, but it's not thinking. It's not analyzing process in as our brain. It's only pretending to be analyzing and pretending to be brain. And it's the main problem of it.
Yeah. It's a bit like social media, maybe for students. Social media is very, very flexible, gives you a lot of data, but it's just that what is in the data room. It's like in the library, and then they offer you books from the library, what is maybe often read or often used as special announcement, etc. But it's limited to the data which is in. And this is what artificial intelligence is doing as well. And even if you have the internet, you only can analyze what is in the internet. You do not know what is with the jam session group around the corner where just 3 people came together after 3 beers and played a good rhythm. This is what is not in artificial intelligence. But this is something people see or feel because they live in the area or they have heard from someone. There is something. Sometimes there is something good music going on, and then you go there. This is what is not in the social media system. It's always what is as data available, and this is the same with ChatGPT. It's always that they use what is in the data, let's say the data lake.
Yes, Alexandra, do you have extra question?
Yeah, just small one. I wanted to say thank you for the webinar because like I really loved it, and I really appreciate that our university helps us to attend the webinar like this. And the Harald, you're a great person, and I would love to attend the webinar of the on May that will be next, and I hope that we'll see you again soon.
Yes, I noted it in my timetable that next week, nearly same time or something. No, on Tuesday, next week, Tuesday, we have a webinar on international specifics in human resources. And that's a bit overlapping with this year. Then we can see what intercultural communication and AI, artificial intelligence, will be in the future. That's very interesting. And we have this as well in our system here. We use Zoom meeting, and you can do reactions like this emojis or something I did now here. But you know that smiling in China means something totally different than smiling in Germany or in Ukraine. Let's see what it brings up next week. I enjoyed it as well, and I would like that. Maybe there will be time in my life that I can come to Kiev as well. It's not that far away in nowadays European times.
Yes, Dr. Harald, you are welcome all the time. So we are looking forward to see you again the 23rd of May. I will provide you with the link, and I would like to thank you very much for books, all your books just now at our library. Thank you very much. Till next time. Thank you. Thank you, dear students and colleagues. Thank you.
It was a pleasure for me. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Good
Bye-bye.
night.
Bye-bye.
Goodbye.
Bye-bye.